The 11:47 p.m. train from Mumbai Central was almost empty, save for a few weary office workers heading home and the occasional insomniac staring out at the city lights bleeding past the windows. Priya clutched her resignation letter in one hand and her phone in the other, watching the missed calls from her mother pile up like autumn leaves. She had done it. Finally, after 3 years of suffocating in a corporate job that paid well but killed her spirit slowly, she had walked into her boss's office and quit. Tomorrow, she would board a flight to Goa to start the small bookshop café she had dreamed about since college. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" She looked up to see a young man with kind eyes and a guitar case slung over his shoulder. His hair was slightly messy, as if he had been running his hands through it, and there was something about his smile that made her forget, momentarily, about her mother's disappointed voice echoing in her head. "No, please," she said, moving her bag to make room. As he settled into the seat across from her, she caught a glimpse of sheet music poking out of his jacket pocket. The notes were handwritten in careful script, with little corrections and annotations scattered across the page. "Musician?" she asked, nodding toward the guitar case. "Trying to be," he said with a self-deprecating laugh. "I'm Aryan, by the way. And you look like someone who just made a life-changing decision." Priya blinked in surprise. "How could you possibly know that? Your hands are shaking, but not with fear. With adrenaline. You keep checking your phone like you're expecting someone to call you back to whatever you just walked away from. And you're holding that paper like it contains either very good news or very bad news." She looked down at the resignation letter, now slightly crumpled from her grip. "Very good news that feels like very bad news." "Ah," Aryan said knowingly. "The kind of decision that's absolutely right but terrifies everyone around you." "Exactly." She found herself smiling despite the knot in her stomach. "What about you? You look like someone who's about to make a life-changing decision." "Tomorrow morning, actually. I have an audition for a music label. It's probably nothing, but..." He shrugged, trying to appear casual, but she could see the hope burning bright in his eyes. "But it could be everything. It could be everything." The train swayed gently as it curved through the night, and Priya felt some of the tension in her shoulders begin to ease. There was something comforting about sitting across from this stranger who understood the peculiar terror of chasing dreams. "What did you quit?" Aryan asked. "Marketing manager for a pharmaceutical company. Good salary, terrible soul-crushing environment, boss who thought creativity was a 4-letter word." She laughed, surprised by how good it felt to say it out loud. "I'm going to open a bookshop cafe in Goa. Probably completely impractical, definitely going to horrify my parents, but it's yours. But it's mine." "What kind of books?" "Everything. Fiction, poetry, philosophy, travel guides, cookbooks. I want it to be the kind of place where you can discover something unexpected. Where someone might pick up a book of Pablo Neruda's poetry while waiting for their coffee and leave completely changed." Aryan's eyes lit up. "That sounds magical. What about you? What kind of music do you make?" "Indie folk, mostly. Songs about moments like this, I suppose. About the spaces between one life and another. About the courage it takes to believe in something you can't see yet." He reached for his guitar case, then hesitated. "This is going to sound crazy, but would you mind if I played you something? It's the song I'm performing tomorrow, and I could use a friendly ear." "I'd love that." Aryan carefully extracted an acoustic guitar with worn edges and a sound hole decorated with a small mandala sticker. He tuned it quickly, his fingers moving with the unconscious precision of someone who had done this thousands of times. "I wrote this last month," he said. "It's called The Last Train." His voice, when he began to sing, was warm and rich like honey and tea. The song was about late-night journeys and the conversations that happen between strangers when the rest of the world is sleeping. About the magic of those suspended moments when you're traveling between who you were and who you might become. As the train pulled into stations and pulled away again, Priya found herself completely absorbed in his music. There was something in his voice that made her think of courage and possibility and all the dreams she had kept carefully locked away in her heart. When he finished, the silence between them was comfortable and full. "That was beautiful," she said softly. "Thank you. It felt right, singing it here. On an actual last train, to someone who understands." Understands what? That sometimes the scariest thing you can do is the thing that will save your life. Priya felt tears prick at her eyes, though she couldn't say exactly why. Maybe it was the music, or maybe it was the relief of finally taking the leap she had been contemplating for so long. Or maybe it was sitting across from this gentle stranger who somehow made her feel less alone in her uncertainty. "Can I tell you something strange?" she said. "Please. I've been planning this move to Goa for months, researching locations and writing business plans and trying to save money. But I never quite believed I'd actually do it. Until tonight, sitting on this train, listening to your song. I feel like I remember why I wanted to do it in the first place." "What do you mean?" "I wanted to create something beautiful. Something that would matter to people. Your music just reminded me what that feels like." Aryan was quiet for a moment, turning the guitar pick over in his fingers. "I've been playing music for 10 years, he said eventually. "Coffee shops, open mic nights, the occasional wedding. But I've never played for a record label before. I've been so nervous about tomorrow that I almost forgot why I wanted to do it." "Why do you want to do it?" "Because I want my songs to find the people who need them. I want to write music that helps people feel less alone in the world." He looked up at her. "The way your bookshop café will help people discover stories that change their lives." "We're both in the business of connection," Priya realized. "I suppose we are." The train began to slow as it approached the next station, and Priya felt a stab of disappointment. She glanced at the display board. This was her stop. "This is me," she said, gathering her things reluctantly. "Wait," Aryan said, pulling a pen from his pocket. He tore a corner off his sheet music and scribbled something on it. "This is my number. When you get your bookshop cafe up and running, I want to know. Maybe I could play there sometime." Priya took the paper, their fingers brushing for just a moment. "And when you get your record deal, I want to stock your album in my shop." "Deal." She stood to leave, then turned back impulsively. "Aryan, you're going to be wonderful tomorrow. That song, it's exactly what the world needs right now." His smile was like sunrise. "And your bookshop is going to change lives. Starting with your own." As the train pulled away from the station, Priya watched his face disappear into the night, but his music lingered in her mind like a promise. She looked down at the scrap of paper in her hand and noticed he had written not just his phone number, but also a line from his song. "Sometimes the journey between who you were and who you'll become is the most beautiful part of the story." Asterisk. 6 months later, Priya's Pages was thriving in a sunny corner of Anjuna, filled with the scent of fresh coffee and new books. Regular customers included backpackers seeking travel guides, locals hunting for recipes, and writers looking for inspiration among the poetry shelves. It was on a Tuesday afternoon, while arranging a display of newly arrived novels, that she heard a familiar voice from the café section. "Excuse me, do you happen to have any books about the courage it takes to believe in something you can't see yet?" She turned to find Aryan standing by the counter, guitar case at his feet, grinning at her with the same warm smile she remembered from the train. "That depends," she said, walking over to him with her heart beating a little faster. "Are you looking for fiction or nonfiction?" "I'm looking for the kind of story that begins on a late-night train and ends with two dreamers who both made it to the other side." "Ah," she said, pretending to consider seriously. "That would be in our happily ever after section. But I should warn you, those stories are still being written." "Perfect," he said, reaching across the counter to take her hand. "I've always preferred stories where you don't know the ending yet." Outside, the Goa sun painted everything in shades of gold, and inside Priya's Pages, two dreamers who had found the courage to chase their impossible dreams discovered that the best stories are the ones you write together. As Aryan unpacked his guitar to play for the afternoon crowd that had gathered, Priya thought about that night on the train, how they had been strangers traveling between versions of themselves, how his music had reminded her why dreams were worth the terror they brought. Now, listening to him play that same song for a room full of book lovers and coffee drinkers, she realized that sometimes the last train to who you used to be is actually the first train to who you're meant to become. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you don't have to make that journey alone.